Hello again. Welcome back to the Movie Buff Reactions channel, and today, for those who may not know, is the 40th anniversary of the release of John Carpenter's The Thing.
It was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live.
And for those who don't know, The Thing from 1982 is my all-time favorite movie. I just can't get enough of it. I fell in love with it the first time I saw it, which was, I believe, late December 2009. I was 14, got it for Christmas, and I just can't express enough just how much I enjoy it, just how much I admire it, and I did a huge-ass review of it over on my main channel back in 2018 with my cousins Nick and Matt Charleston, and if you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts, go check that out. To put it simply, it is a masterfully done horror suspense film. I've gone on and on about just how much I admire the films of John Carpenter. He is an extremely skilled director in the horror, action, and suspense genres. He is very good at making movies where he doesn't have to delve too much into characters or backstory, but you never feel like you're being left out of anything. And they're always a good time. They're pretty kick-ass. Aside from The Thing, I also greatly enjoy They Live, In the Mouth of Madness, Prince of Darkness, and even though they're some of his lesser talked about films, Ghosts of Mars and Vampires with James Woods are just excellent kick-ass horror rides, and with this being the 4th anniversary, I thought it'd be cool to react to a review of the original The Thing. And the person I'm going to react to today is Decker Shado, aka the internet personality with the best hair. I've done a few reactions to him over the years, mostly his reviews of the Steven Seagal movies, because there's a lot of good material to get out of that shit. And I'm both excited, but a little nervous, because I love Decker, he's a pretty good reviewer, but The Thing is my favorite movie, and like I did with Alex Luchar, my good friend, a few weeks ago, we reacted to the Cinema Sins video on Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which is his favorite film, and he was pretty nervous about that because he loves that movie to death, and before I ramble on too much longer, I'm a little nervous here, but I'm going to give it a fair shake, and I'm actually going to maybe take a few notes here just to see if Decker has any good points to make, or if I gotta get defensive with my favorite movie. So, without further ado, let's watch and see what he has to say.
Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Decker Shado, the actor's now in the best hair, and it's time for The Thing. It's actually a lot more specific than it sounds. Of course, I'm referring to John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. It's a quasi-remake of The Thing from Another World from 1951.
Also a decent film.
It's a movie version of the story that movie was based on, Who Goes There, by John W. Campbell in 1938. Where The Thing from Another World is a story about that time a U.S. Air Force crew in Alaska saved the world from an alien plant monster, and the hero gets the girl needed. The Thing is about a U.S. science team in Antarctica who encounters a strange alien life form with the power to mimic its victims. You know, what the book was about. I'm saying there's no differences. I doubt the original book took place in 1982. But to say that this is a remake of the 1951 movie isn't really accurate. Also, to say that the new The Thing is a remake of this one also isn't accurate. That was actually a prequel. Whatever the case, Our Tale of Terror follows a group of scientists as they do science in Antarctica. However, their experiments involving smoking and playing ping pong are turned on their head when a mysterious alien life form infiltrates their installation. With nowhere to escape to in the frozen continent, they alone stand in between The Thing and the entire human race. And trying to figure out exactly how it works is a little difficult. So let's take a look at The Thing. That can be taken in so many ways. Our story begins in space. The flying saucer makes good use of the film's ridiculously huge budget on alien schnapps, as this wobbly-ass spaceship is careening right into Earth. Where on Earth? Antarctica, where you go to meet one of the best acted characters in the film, the Doggo, played by White Fang himself, Jed. The Norwegians in the helicopter, though, aren't the biggest...
Good animal actor.
Out of that, they saw the Dog Soldiers review as well and aren't taking any chances. The logical result of playing too much duck hunt is only half the tale, though. There's the U.S. Research Station 4 to visit. Or 31, depending if you listen to the dialogue or the props. The important thing is we get to watch Kurt Russell do a Let's Play on that super high-tech video chess.
Look tonight.
80s video games.
Checkmate.
He's right, you know, that wasn't a checkmate. He was in a pretty shit spot, but it would take more than one move to end the game. The two groups meet soon enough, as the helicopter chase has brought them all the way to the American facility. They greet the dog with open arms, but that's nothing a grenade can't fix.
Slip. So many explosions.
I see. Using the old PlayStation Move controls. He can talk instead of fighting, but...
Ugh, lick.
He's Norwegian, which means there's a very high probability that he knows English, but fucking Norway represent! Also, he does say some things in Norwegian that would be very helpful for these guys' survival if they knew what he was saying, but he also shot one of them in the leg, so...
Who can speak Norwegian?
That's how you do foreign relations the American way. This introduces most of the cast too fast for me to rattle off, so for now I'll just point out Revolver Ocelot over here is the man in charge of the station, Gary, played by Donald Moffat, and Kurt Russell is the group's helicopter pilot, McCree. The man who was shot was Bennings, played by Peter Maloney, and the man tasked with patching him up is Dr. Copper, played by Richard Dysart.
Nose ring Doc.
Maybe just went mad down here, so far from civilization, but it's hard to confirm this as their radio technician, Windows, played by Thomas G. Waits, hasn't been able to contact anyone in weeks. No bother. Chief Scientist guy Dr. Blair, played by Wilfred Brimley, has
Diabetes.
Get a hold of somebody. Get a hold of anybody. We gotta report this mess.
Get a hold of Liberty Medical. They can help if you or a loved one has been diagnosed with diabetes. Hollywood career spanning 6 decades and 77 roles, and he will forever be known as Diabetes Man.
And the
Chef
Cocoon
Knowles,
guy.
played by T.K. Carter, roller skates in to point out he's also a streetwise, hip, young member of the team, while David Clennon plays Palmer, the resident stoner every 80s horror movie seems contractually obligated to include.
They're in Antarctica. What else are they gonna do?
Played by Charles Hallahan, Childs, played by Keith David, and Fuchs, played by Joe Polis. Guess that means the only one I missed introducing earlier was that sled dog handler, Clark, played by Richard Mauser. No bother. Now that introductions are out of the way, the group decides that Mac and Dr. Copper should head over to that Norwegian base for answers as to why the men came screaming, shooting, and blowing up their own helicopter. The dog, in the meantime, gets to freely roam around the compound, coming and going as it pleases.
Good, subtle, chilling moment.
It's like that jump scared by a friend scene we see in every horror movie except from the other character's perspective. We can get plenty of spooky situations down at the Norwegian science base, though, as when Mac and Doc arrive, they find the place has been burnt to a crisp, looking like some horrible extreme reverse icy hot experiment gone wrong.
Ugh. So grisly.
My God, what the hell happened here?
Okay, he slit his wrists, and probably unnecessarily, considering his blood was so cold it froze on the way out. But just sitting there waiting to die, freezing to death, it's like, this is taking too long, I'll do it myself! That's not the only thing the Norwegians were doing out here, though.
One of the few similarities to the original.
The ice is empty, and while it's sized and shaped in a nice homage to the ice block from the 1951 movie, the characters don't see anything too significant about it just yet. However, on their way up the base, they come across the burnt remains of some horrifying, indescribable monstrosity in the snow. So, naturally, they dig it up and haul that motherfucker back with them to show everyone!
Trying to figure out what happened. They're scientists.
Found this.
Never seen anything like that before. Grotesque, pungent, probably carrying all kinds of diseases. So everyone, I want you to gather around and take nice big gasps of air, okay? But let's not forget, they're scientists. Scientists who study all kinds of science down here. Therefore, it's up to Dr. Blair to perform an autopsy and learn everything he can about the creature they found.
Well, what we got here is what appears to be, anyway, a normal set of internal organs. Heart,
All clumped together.
lungs, kidneys, liver, intestines.
And they all show signs of type 2 onset diabetes. happiness. Honestly,
Of
Wilford
course.
Brimley here was just about the only guy on set who didn't get queasy during the autopsy scene. Gutting enough animals in your life will do that for you. Oh well,
Farm guy.
Or fails to impress. Clark is tasked with taking the new dog to the kennel with the rest of them, leaving the creature alone and in the dark, and spending so long with the camera fixated on this mundane task, it shouldn't be surprising to find out things aren't quite what they seem.
The scene that broke so many reactors.
Okay, maybe time to take him to the vet. That's right, the dog is in fact the thing, and begins transforming with all kinds of weird new body parts, and attacks the other dogs around him. Obviously, this makes more than a little noise, which causes Clark to come back and check on what's going on, finding a monster where his dogs are supposed to be. He doesn't get called for help, though. That comes down to Mac hearing the noise and smashing the fire alarm with his beer. By the time everyone gathers around, the beast has changed form quite drastically, and it comes down to Childs rushing in with a flamethrower to take it down.
Best weapon you could have in a horror film.
You guys might want to think about letting it roast for a little while longer before running in with the fire extinguishers. I was under the impression you actually tried to kill it.
Don't want the
Somehow
base to
it
burn
dies,
down.
though, which gives us our second body of the thing for the scientists to examine. Having an idea of its behavior before it was killed means that Blair can make some educated guesses as to what they're dealing with. A strange, unknown organism that mimics other life forms as a means to infiltrate, consume other creatures, and propagate its own survival.
This, for instance. That's not dog. It's imitation.
Nothing but tofu and soy. Trying to find answers means they look over the data the Dr. Cupper recovered from the Norwegian base. It seems they found something a few miles from where they were stationed, and dug it up with the help of some motherfucking thermite. Since the tapes don't show what it is they actually found, Mac and friends head back out to find out exactly what it was they dug up.
Beautiful.
A very large and impressive matte painting. One difference between the original
Hey,
and this movie
it's
is
pretty
that the spaceship
impressive.
was in 10,000-year-old ice, not 100,000. Also, Norwegians didn't find it. There was no other science team. It was all on these guys. Also, in the book, the thermite explosion destroyed the flying saucer, whereas here, we just see it's in rough shape, and they never even go in it to see how it looks, instead heading a little further away from the crash site for yet another shocking revelation.
Who said they didn't look inside in between going and getting out?
This cutout is a familiar shape. Hearing that the thing may in fact be from another world, the station erupts in rampant speculation.
Happens all the time, man. They're falling out of the skies like flies. Government knows all about
Get
it.
along with Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, it's just like that time someone's family pet transformed into the blob and killed the entire neighborhood, and the government comes through and tells us all it was just a weather balloon. Suffice to say, they don't know a damn thing about what they're dealing with. Nels is more concerned with people throwing their shredded underwear into the kitchen trash bins, and the only one with any concept of biology here is Wilford Brimley. So he does what 80s scientists tend to do. Tells his computer alien organism and shit, and the thing spits out some Atari 2600 graphics to explain the plot. The creature eats other creatures, and then imitates them to keep from being detected long enough to safely feed again. If something like this were to reach a populated area, the entire world could be destroyed in a mere 3 years.
Pretty impressive computer for the 80s.
Don't you worry, Blair's got a 38 special, so that when the end of the world comes, he can have a 38 special. For the time being, it's decided they should store their rotting carcasses in the storage room. Not under ice or anything, which you would think would be pretty easy in Antarctica, but just somewhere they can easily rot, because that'll preserve them when it comes time to win all those science awards for the science done here.
Good point.
Blair has locked himself away in his lab and refuses to come out, and Fuchs has come with some research notes of Blair's that he has to tell Mac at once, as long as it's in secret, completely away from anyone who may benefit from hearing this.
There is still cellular activity in these burned remains. They're not dead yet.
And he brought me out here alone and far away from the thing, with all the people around it who may benefit very well from knowing this information. Why?
Well,
That way, Bennett can be alone with the thing for just
so he get one-on-one.
Blue girl treatment. But when Windows runs off to ask Mac for help, Bennett has slipped away a whole 40 feet so they don't have any problem catching up to him or proving to the rest of the guys he's not who he seems.
This scene still gives me chills.
I'd rather they just caught him in the middle of auditioning for Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Burns him to death either way. This time they're quite a bit more thorough with the job, ensuring that every last piece of the thing is burnt to a crisp. That's all well and good, but they can't seem to find where Blair has run off to. Until Max spots Blair running away from the helicopter, that is. Oh, it's cool. He was just giving the thing one of those Apple firmware updates. The sounds of gunfire get Mac to rush inside, where he finds Blair going absolutely apeshit, wrecking the radio room, windows wounded in the corner, and the science guy raving on and on about how fucked everything is.
He may seem crazy here, but the grand scheme is probably for the best.
And if you listen, it makes perfect sense why you'd wreck the helicopter and radio. Well, I mean, the helicopter, the radio hasn't worked all movie, but it's to prevent the thing from reaching a populated area in the first place. Save the world. Kill your coworkers.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Don't actually do that. After Childs tries to calm the man, unsuccessfully, Mac rushes in and punches Wilfred Brimley the fuck out. As he is now a danger to himself
It's a
and
good,
others,
fun
it's
punch.
decided he should be locked up alone in the shed. He's not so violent anymore after enough sedative, but he still has words of warning from Mac.
Watch Clark. And watch him close, do you hear me?
Okay, now the movie is downright telling us this is the man you should be suspicious of. Suspect him. With Blair secluded, and nobody watching him, Mac figures they have to do something to weed out who may or may not be things. Problem is, as Childs pointed out, if they are imitated perfectly, how the hell are you supposed to know? Don't worry, Dr. Copper figures a blood test mixing their
Be
blood
wary
with
of everyone.
uncontaminated blood might be a way to find out. As if the blood comes from one of these things, there might be a reaction. Problem with this plan is someone already got to the blood, and thus this becomes a contest.
It's a great holy
Who
shit
can away from
scene.
themselves the fastest, starting with who even had a key to the blood cooler.
I just give it to Copper whenever he needs it. Could anybody have gotten it from you, Doc?
I don't see how. As soon as I'm finished, I return it right away.
It's one half debate, one half staring contest. In the middle of all the commotion, Windows breaks down and runs off to get a shotgun. This gives Gary a chance to pull out his sidearm again and make everyone even more convinced that he's out of his mind and therefore one of the things. Mac, on the other hand, who is still in control of himself, de-escalates the situation by assuming control as the new leader of the group. After all, he's motherfucking Kurt Russell, with him in charge.
Can't argue with that.
Close eye on Gary, Dr. Copper, and Clark, sedating them so they'll be easier to control.
Fuchs, you start working on a new tech.
I need Doc's help. Yeah, you don't want to drug me. Dr. Copper also seems to have failed all of those courses about how to not sound extremely suspicious when surrounded by paranoia and death. And then again,
Paranoia.
he's not the one who has next to no idea
What
what
can
to
you
do in
say?
this situation.
A small particle of this thing is enough to take over an entire organism. And everyone should prepare their own meals. And I suggest we only eat out of cans.
Yeah.
The way of COVID pandemic.
But what's the hard limit here? Can a cat-sized blob of the thing take over a human-sized prey? Or is a single cell really all you need to eventually do it? Because if it's the latter, then couldn't the thing just run around the base spitting on everyone and eventually win? No, they have to check on Blair, but Fuchs finds some suspicious-looking ripped clothes of McCready's. He's missing around the same time a fuse goes out in the lab, and nobody knows where he is. So not only is the group breaking down, not trusting each other, but when Mac reaches Blair's shed to question him, he's peculiarly chipper.
I'm not gonna harm anybody. There's nothing wrong with me. And if there was, I'm all better now. I'd like to come back inside. Now, you got my promise.
And can I take my friend Noose here and hang out? Whenever I'm feeling down, he's always there to lift me up. He also ensures that Fuchs isn't someone they should worry about, but they still won't let him come back inside. They have a search to conduct, and they do find Fuchs shortly afterward, burnt to a crisp. But it's him all right. They figure he burnt himself to avoid being eaten by the thing.
Disturbing scenario.
One other thing, though, is Mac's lights are on, and he knows he left them off. Back inside the base, though,
This makes you freeze up when you see that light.
Eventually, Knowles makes it back and has quite the story to tell.
It was stashed in his own oil furnace. Wind must have dislodged it, but I don't think he saw me find it. I made sure I got ahead of him,
So the one who's been leading the charge for destroying the Thing is actually secretly the Thing. And don't get me wrong, that would be a really good disguise, but you would think if he was the Thing, you might be slightly less enthusiastic about this. Therefore,
I'm not sure anyone thought Kurt was infected, but it does create good tension with the group.
Threaten everyone with dynamite in order to get them to stop trying to throw him out. This is still a really stressful situation, obviously, and Vince collapses.
Stop breathing!
One's out of dock.
Get in here. And bring the others.
Gather everyone together because this is going to be one hell of a scene. Quite the memorable one, showcasing the work of Rob Martin and the dozens of other people who worked on the special effects makeup for this movie. But as you can tell,
Rob was only 22 when he did this.
Medical emergency doesn't go exactly as the characters anticipated.
Clear.
Crazy to think.
It turns out that was the Thing. Or a thing. There's quite a few of them running around to get away with calling it the. It's not just that shot that makes this a memorable scene for practical effects, but the monster that erupts out of the patient's chest and is subsequently blasted by a motherfucking flamethrower. But it ain't done yet. Breaking off its own head, the Thing slithers away in an attempt to escape, growing a brand new set of legs and eyes to aid.
So cool.
The Thing almost manages to run off, and then is blasted by even more fiery goodness.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
But this gives Mac an idea. First things first, he's got to tie some of them down and convince the others not to try to kill him while he's getting everyone ready.
Sad, but brought on himself.
And when threatening everyone with dynamite doesn't work, just shoot a motherfucker in the face. Then they all calm down and listen to you. Doesn't really seem to work for me. I mean, I think if I were there, I'd just piss myself and run. After that, he gets everyone to agree to his little game. Everyone but Windows and Mac are tied down, and everyone's blood is collected. Mac says
That's probably the most hard thing to watch, the thumb.
To try to escape a hot needle. After testing Windows and himself, he determines they are both still human and continues the tests.
Now, Clark.
And Clark was human, huh? Which makes you a murderer, don't it?
No, Clark was charging at him with a scalpel in hand.
Self-defense.
Pretty sure self-defense is still a thing in Antarctica. No bother. Next up is Palmer.
That made me jump so hard the first time I saw it.
One might be
Best scene in the
wondering
movie.
to tough it out to remain unnoticed, but it is imitating a petri dish full of blood, so it might be a little small for complex thought processes beyond just basic instinct. Having been found out, though, Palmer changes form into a horrifying, split-headed monster. This wouldn't be much of an issue.
Windows was the saddest death for
completely
me.
devoid of any kinds of quality assurance, but at the end of the day, it's Windows who falls prey to the terrors before them. That means by the time Max Flammen Werfer can Verflammen again, not only does he have to take out Palmer, but Windows shortly after. Okie dokie, back to the blood tests then.
Good time in there.
Okay, that's it then. Everyone's passed and we can just let bygones be bygones.
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter
Tied to this fucking couch!
And that clip is absolutely perfect to describe the situation for anyone suffering from a seasonal flu. I only wish that the channel were actually
Great
large
comedic
enough
break
that
in the
I could
middle of
demand
the
that people
terror.
And it actually work. There's still one person left who hasn't had their blood tested yet. Wilfred Brimley, surprisingly enough. When they go to the shack, though, not only is he nowhere to be found, but it seems he's dug a secret basement and is building an escape vehicle of his very own.
Where was he trying to go?
Any place but here.
Oh no shit, people don't generally buy airline tickets to spend their weekend sitting at home on the couch eating bonbons. It gets worse. Their thing has cut the power to the point where they're all going to freeze to death very soon. It's playing the long game. Freeze itself now so that it may thaw out later when a rescue team arrives. Therefore, Mac decides to take a stand and kill the thing right here and now with the help of the few survivors he has with him. Together they burn each room in the base to a crisp.
They may not make it, but they can save the world.
Blow the whole thing sky high. Childs disappears on the surface mysteriously, though, and while they're setting charges. Jesus Christ, it's like he's holding his face Bethesda style. As this is a horror movie, Niles doesn't mention seeing something weird and just quietly sneaks toward his likely death, with Mac none the wiser until our hero is left alone in the cold, dead silence. What the hell was that, Kurt? I don't think insurance fraud works against parasitic extraterrestrial changelings. But this is our final confrontation. And we got a little less than a minute, so no fight. We have just enough time to show off the monstrosity.
And a great final line.
The Thing, before Kurt Russell does it in with a catchy one-liner.
Fuck you too!
What else can you say? Enough explosions to make Michael Bay come.
That really was the deciding factor in that film. Therefore, dark ending. The Thing is dead, but Mac is going to be soon anyway. But what's this? Childs came back from just off screen. He seems human enough, but as we know, they always seem human. The end? Question mark? While the Thing video game from the 6th generation follows this movie's events right where this leaves off, so no. But in any case, that was The Thing.
Final
And
thoughts?
believe it or not, critics fucking hated it when it first came out.
Yeah.
Not sure about audiences, though. It did do very badly at the box office, but it came out shortly after E.T. and on the same day as Blade Runner. E.T. was taking everyone's
bad
money, and
timing.
Blade Runner did hardly in theaters, but eventually became known as one of the greatest films ever made. I think The Thing likely scored low with critics because it's horror, and that's something a lot of critics don't like. It sounds silly
Fucking
to put it like that,
bullshit.
but if you've been watching my show for a while, you know what I mean. Horror is meant to instill a sense of dread and terror in the audience, not make you feel good as you watch the hero save the day. The Thing gives that feeling of dread, not by its very impressive gore and creature effects, but by how it's set up, where you really don't know who you can trust. Part of that is because they simply don't give the information to the viewer to even give you a chance to figure it out. That is something I complain about a lot in so-called mystery movies, but here it works because the point is you can't figure out who it is you can trust, and leaving that kind of information out in the open would hurt the movie's fear factor in the long run. Another effect the lack of information has is the fan novels written trying to theorize exactly who was a thing at what point. I find rampant speculation at that level a bit much, but you gotta admit it gives you plenty to talk about. Overall, The Thing is about a mysterious, indescribable monster that stalks an isolated group in a desolate wasteland. It's not going to make any critics out there giggle or feel inspired for the strength of the human spirit, but it's going to make you feel uneasy and possibly queasy. Also, with effects this complex, it's more than a disservice to call it cheap shock horror, because that's expensive as fuck. It also comes in at 5 unspeakably awful, indescribable horrors out of 5.
Sweet.
Which is an incredibly safe rating to give this movie these days. It's amazing what a few decades will do for your film. Thank you all for watching. I'm Decker Shado, and remember, save the world, kill your coworkers.
Fuck yeah. Surprisingly, he didn't have much bad to say, if any. He always puts a little note here at the end, so let's see. Additional notes. And thus ends the reviews that were supposed to come out in October of 2017. Still quite behind, I'm afraid. No bother, there's a lot more to do, and I intend to do it all. Just gotta keep Dobie from trying to kill me when I film or edit, and things should go a lot smoother. I remember playing The Thing on the original Xbox. It was a bit of a frustrating game. You wanted to explore, but there was a very harsh limit on how much you could. Dying from exposure wasn't limited to the edges of the map, but anytime you were outside at all for too long, this meant you pretty much had to already know where you were going before you went out of any door. For obvious reasons, this wasn't very easy to do on the first playthrough of said game. Oh, but in case you're wondering, the game was considered canon and Childs was human. He froze to death, been anticlimactic there, in it. I like the fan theories that he's a thing because the booze was actually a Molotov cocktail and therefore gasoline, and the Thing drank it anyway. The fan theories that say Childs isn't breathing at the end are just silly though. It's not as visible but because of the lighting, but he's clearly breathing. But his breath isn't visible. See what the after credits scene is.
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter.
Tied to this fucking couch!
Not a bad clip, but would have been nicer if it was one they didn't showcase in the review. But anyway, I enjoyed that a lot. It's a good pro thing review while still making some jokes. Decker is kind of similar in some cases. Like, he does review legitimately bad films, but he does go through good movies while still riffing it a bit. Kind of like The Unusual Suspect. Although he puts out way more regular content than Ross John Fernley ever does. And what little notes I had, I surprisingly didn't have to make a lot. I thought he might pick apart a few more things here and there, but the Norwegians not speaking English, I don't think you can fault it for that. Yes, I believe in the Thing prequel, which some may not choose to consider that canon. I remember, I think the Norwegian guy in that, who ended up on the helicopter, he could speak a little English, but for the most part he spoke in his natural dialect. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it went down. And the matte painting for the flying saucer, it looked real enough to me, and either way, it looks incredible. And not putting ice on the Thing carcasses when they put it in storage, well, it is Antarctica, and I guess that's a fair criticism, but shortly afterwards it leads to Bennings being taken over. So maybe they were in the process of putting some extra packing in there. Who knows? And the part where Fuchs takes Mac out to the snowplow to talk, all by himself and not with the group. Well, maybe Fuchs felt Mac was one of the few sensible folk that could listen, because they were talking earlier, and Childs did go on the whole "I cannot believe this voodoo bullshit" rant. But anyway, that's the gist of what I wrote down. Not a lot, because he surprisingly didn't have many things to pick apart, but I guess it just shows John Carpenter's The Thing is an amazing horror film that, while not appreciated when it first came out, has really grown to get a lot of great recognition, and it's hard to say what I haven't already said before. It captures the perfect feeling of paranoia and dread, and the ending, while sad, is the perfect ending to the film. Leaves a little bit of ambiguity as to whether or not Childs is infected, but it does end on a pretty final note, and while Decker says he's clearly breathing, I'm with everybody when I notice, while he is breathing, no air is visible when he talks, as opposed to Kurt Russell speaking. And there's probably some good defenders to be made as to why that's not happening, but I see that as a pretty good sign that he's probably infected. And I've never played the Thing video game, so can't say for much about how that followed things up, but overall, great film, great review. I will never get tired of John Carpenter's The Thing. I cannot recommend it enough, and at this point I'm just rambling. Good review. Check out more of Decker Shado if you're not familiar with him, and if you haven't seen The Thing in its entirety, do it. And if you've already seen it, then see it again. This movie cannot get enough love. It's been 40 years, and that's just fucking wild. And I'll wrap this up by saying probably the most quoted line from the movie. Not the scene with Gary on the couch, but this has become pretty quoted over the past few years with the pandemic and a whole bunch of other shit. It's when McCready's talking to the tape recorder and says, Nobody trusts anybody anymore. And we're all very tired. See you again soon.